Hey, what's going on, everybody? Indie Pride here with Milk and Cookies Total War, bringing you another Call of Warhammer replay commentary, and I'm very excited to be showing you the vampire counts for the first time. They're the faction that I'm most excited for when Total War Warhammer drops, and if their roster in Call of Warhammer is any indication of what we're going to see in the Total War Warhammer game, I'm very, very excited to play as them. There are a couple really cool things that differentiate the undead Sylvanians from other factions in the game. One of the biggest is that they're all immune to fear, or most of the units for the vampire counts are completely immune to fear, meaning they will not rout from the battlefield. Basically, the whole strategy behind the vampire counts is you overwhelm your opponents with numbers and undead, and you're not going to run from the field. They'll fight to the last man, which is a really, really cool thing about them. They have some very unique units. I've already shown you guys what the Blood Dragon Knights look like. Extremely powerful cavalry unit. Also bringing some Knights of the Black Grail in this game, and some Vampire Black Knights, which are just skeleton warriors on horseback. The Karn Race are a very cool unit. They're actually not faithfully represented in Call of Warhammer. I believe in the tabletop game, the Karn Wraith is actually a single entity. It's one Wraith, just extremely powerful. In this game, you actually get a whole unit of 85. They all have 2 hit points, 12 attack, 12 defense, 10 charge. Very good unit, but not quite faithfully represented in the tabletop game, or as they are in the tabletop game. The Blood Dragons on foot, kind of like Zweihanders, 2 hit points, crazy good melee stats, very, very good. Front line of zombies, which are really good meat shields. We'll talk about that once we get down to the actual replay. And then a bunch of undead warriors of chaos, couple of Empire swordsmen just to round up my line, and 2 Drakenhof guard, which are again kind of Zweihander skeleton units. I'm going to be playing against Vod Gojira in this game, and he is rocking the Beastmen. I'm going to say right now that this is an extremely hard matchup for Beastmen in this particular mod, just because they don't have their full roster. They are kind of interwoven with the other Chaos factions. In this case, Gojira is playing as Khorne, and so there are only, I believe, 3 or 4 different Beastmen units in the game. The Minotaurs, the Beastigors, the Ungors armed with spears, and the Gors. So the Beastigors are a pretty cool unit. You'll see them in a second. Huge guys, 2 hit points, very powerful off the charge, pretty good in melee, but they cost a decent amount at 2,000 talents. The main killing power behind the Beastmen comes from the Minotaurs, which have insane stats, 30 attack, 27 defense, 28 charge. They obliterate units when they touch them, and they have 8 hit points, but they cost an obscene amount of money at 8,000 talents, so you can't afford a lot of them. And then the rest of these guys, the Ungors and the Gors, are basically just meat shields. So just going into the battle, vampire counts have a huge advantage just from their roster. They have a very unique and diverse roster. But we decided to play the game anyway. He wanted to rock the Beastmen. Pretty interesting replay. Hope you guys can join me. I'll see you on the battlefield in just a second. So before we jump too far into the replay and get into the action here, I wanted to show off the army and some of the unit models. My front line are going to be the 2 zombie units that each have 250 men. In theory, an amazing meat shield, but if you've been watching Maximus's videos, you know how unbelievably slow they are. So if you can keep them in front of your main line of troops, they are a great meat shield, but they move so slowly. That's actually pretty hard to do sometimes. Get a good look at the Karn Race there again, a full unit of them, not a single Wraith, which is maybe a little bit unfortunate because I think it'd be really cool to see one Karn Wraith in the middle of an army just wrecking everyone. The Drakenhof Guard there, some of the Blood Dragons, and in the back line, the Vampire Black Knights, and one of my favorite units in the Call of Warhammer mod, the Knights of the Black Grail. I think the model for them is absolutely fantastic. Them, along with the Blood Dragons, they look absolutely amazing. So my general is going to be in that Blood Dragon unit. The unit itself looks really, really cool. The general himself, I don't know what they were doing with the mod. I don't think that that's how they look like in the tabletop game. It's like an 1800 style vampire, but it's more of a Renaissance medieval age kind of fantasy world. So I think that they look honestly kind of weird, and I'm not sure what they were going with on that. The 1800s vampire thing doesn't do it for me. I don't think it looks very good. But looking at the Beastmen army, the Minotaurs, those will be the main killing force for the Beastmen. Absolutely a terror on the battlefield, really, really hard to bring down, and they're going to be what I try to focus on to kill the most. The Beastigors are a very good, tanky main line, huge charge bonus, very tanky, very strong in melee, but a little bit expensive at 2,000 talents or 2,000 gold crowns. You can see some of the gores in the background. I did forget that he brought also 2 Chaos Marauder Horsemen, which are basically just jav throwing cav, medium cavalry. They can beat some units in melee, but you really don't want to send them in right away. You want them to use all of their ammunition before you get some kind of hammer and anvil off. And then you have some Ungors with spears on the side, and in the front here, you can see in front of the zombies, because again they're so slow, I have the undead halberd warriors of chaos. So this is going to be a very rush-centric game. We both brought rush armies. The only ranged units on the field are actually the 2 Chaos Marauder Horsemen. I have a straight rush army, which I think is pretty common with the vampire counts. It's basically just pushing forward. In the actual Total War Warhammer game, or the tabletop game, you use magic a lot. You have to keep your vampire lord alive to keep refreshing and keep your undead units regenning and coming back alive if they fall. And if you lose a vampire, there's a good chance that you lose much of your army because the magic that's binding them, keeping them alive, disappears. But in Call of Warhammer, there's no such thing. The magic isn't as important. It's basically about the units and their melee stats and capabilities. And there are a lot of really unique, and there's just a huge variety of vampire count units. So we're looking at the main charge of the Beastgores coming right now. Vodgojiro wanted to get into melee as soon as possible, so he's going to rush right into the Halberd Warriors of Chaos. You're going to see I put my guys into Spear Wall just in time. That's going to be able to soak up the charge nicely. Beastgores do have a charge bonus of 10, which is pretty large, and the Halberd Warriors are quite good at deflecting that charge bonus. You can see some of the Beastgores already dying, but they did a decent amount of damage off the charge, and I'm going to follow it up with a charge from my Drakenhof Guard. And now the Minotaurs are going to come in, and these are, again, what I have to worry about the most. You can just see them run in there. As soon as they get into melee, my Undead Warriors of Chaos just getting thrown straight up into the air. Minotaurs doing a ton of damage. He was very smart to commit them early because they're really the killing power of his army. He honestly has to commit them early because he's outnumbered. My army is much, much bigger than the Beastmen army. So I'm going to just try to tie them down. Hold down the main line. You see the Karn Race also got committed there. Just hold down the main line. Try to hold the Minotaurs back. Make sure they don't get any huge hammer and animals off. Just tie them down for a while. On the right flank, I managed to get my Vampire Black Knights around the flank, and I'm going to position them to break the Beastmen's left flank here. Now he has some Ungors with spears and some Gores and the Javelin Cavalry over on this side. You can see some of the Javelins coming in, doing a bit of damage, and he was very smart to pull off the Ungors with spears from the main line. And they're spear units, so they're going to do some damage to my Vampire Black Knights here, which is not ideal. I'm going to notice that he actually turned around and countercharged me, so I'm going to pull out. Probably lost about a third of that unit right there, so it wasn't ideal, but I did cause that very low morale Gore unit to rout as well. So, decent trade right there. I mean, my unit was obviously much more expensive, but if I can break that right flank, that's very important because it's going to allow me to get those surrounds off, and outnumbering and surrounding your opponent with the vampire counts is very, very important. So you can see the Minotaur in there doing a ton of damage. Karn Race with their high armor piercing doing a decent job of tying them down at the moment. And when you get a Minotaur surrounded like that, it's very useful because you have a bunch of units attacking them, and that puts them in that hit stun state where they can't keep attacking you over and over again. You prevent them from attacking, and they're not going to be able to do as much damage. So he did get great charge bonuses all across the line with the Minotaurs. I was a little impatient, and my zombies weren't out front of my army because they're so damn slow, like I mentioned before, that it honestly takes forever for them to stay in front of your lines. So he got really good charge bonuses off with the Minotaurs. But over on this side, I pulled my Vampire Black Knights away. A little bit of a micro mistake. I pulled them away and then stopped them. And I noticed that the Marauder Horsemen actually charged into the rear there and did some damage. I did manage to break his left flank here. Some of the lower tier units, I haven't killed very many of his Beastigores or his Minotaurs yet, but I do have my Knights of the Black Grail here, and the most important unit on this flank is actually the Chaos Marauder Horseman, so I want to get rid of his mobility first. I saw that he tied down my Vampire Knights, so I'm going to charge in with my Knights of the Black Grail here. Great rear charge, going to completely surround them. That Marauder Horseman unit is going to die very, very soon. That should be very good for me. That means that these two cab units will be free to then start getting hammer and anvils off on the main line, which is going to be pretty important. So that unit should rout pretty quickly. He's going to try to reinforce with some of those spear units, but not going to be able to get there in time. That's going pretty well for me. Balance bar is still even at the moment, but I do like how things are going because I have the mobility advantage. Having that cav advantage is very, very important. And the Minotaurs honestly have mobility that's similar to cavalry, but they're all tied down. So that's pretty good for me. The Blood Dragons are getting committed into melee there. Got a decent charge off on some of his lower tier units. Going to try to pull them out a bit. And you can see that over on my left flank, he has some more gore units coming in to surround my undead warriors, which is not the biggest deal again because the undead warriors, the Sylvanian warriors, skeleton warriors in particular, they don't rout. They can't rout. They're immune to fear, which is a very, very nice feature of the vampire counts. But Minotaurs, at this point, each of them at least up to 150 kills, just shredding stuff in the main line. Very, very tough to bring down with those 8 hit points and that massive armor value. So it's going to just be me surrounding them and hoping I can cut them down in time. There's not as much tactics going on with a unit like that because you really just commit them and hope that they can do the killing that you want them to do, and they often will. That stat line really makes it easier for them to do that kind of killing. He did have a gore unit out here that was completely isolated, and so I was like, hey, it's a good target for my Knights of the Black Grail. So again, going to rout them. And you can see the Beastmen are actually having a little bit of trouble with the wavering. A lot of the, besides being immune to fear, a lot of the vampire count units actually cause fear as well, which makes a lot of sense. They're undead. I would be very scared to fight zombies or skeletons. So a lot of these Beastmen units, at least the low tier ones, are going to rout relatively early after I get good charges off. Again, the Beastigors and the Minotaurs, not going to worry about that so much. In fact, I think the Minotaurs might be immune to fear effects. But it's going pretty well for me. You can see the balance bar starting to shift in my favor a bit. Do have these Minotaurs completely surrounded. The Blood Dragons are starting to charge in and do some damage here. But one of the Minotaurs that was in the center of the fight actually crushed my zombie unit and a couple of other of my Chaos Warrior units and moved in. And you can see they got a rear charge off into the back of my undead warriors over here. And this is actually going to be pretty big as well. Another Beastigor unit, or not a Beastigor unit, a Gore unit, tied down by my Drakenhof Guard, charged in the rear by the Knights of the Black Grail. Again, another routing unit for Beastmen, and things are starting to shift ever more in my favor. But the thing is, he still has the most important unit on the field. It's the Minotaurs, and I've done HP damage to them, but I've only killed maybe one out of the 40 or so Minotaurs that he brought to the field. I believe there are 20 in each unit. He brought 2 units. So, I mean, you just look at that charge bonus. You look at what they do on the charge. They just fling up even elite units. I don't even want to commit my Blood Dragons or my Knights to the Black Grail at this point because they're just so powerful. The Minotaurs are so strong in melee that you kind of just want to wear them down on the much cheaper units and do that HP damage with like the undead halberd warriors of chaos and then charge in. You can see my Karn race and my Blood Dragons and my Knights of the Black Grail finally getting committed here. And you can actually see right there in the center of the screen the Khorne General, the Beastmen General right there. He's going to be a thorn in my side. You can see he's kind of outnumbered by 2 of my undead chaos warriors at the moment. But he's that general unit, the general in particular, is going to do some decent damage, and he survives for a very, very long time in this melee engagement. So at this point, I have my opponent completely surrounded. I've killed off much of his Beastigor units, only a handful of those left. It's basically only the Minotaurs in the middle of all of my elite and not so elite vampire count units. So I'm going to actually leave the commentary here because there's not a lot left to talk about. It's just going to be the Khorne General going to work on some of my higher tier units. You're going to see him kill quite a few there. He killed another Black Grail Knight. But I'm going to leave that for the cinematics, and I will rejoin the commentary once the battle ends and I talk about the result screen. So I'll leave you guys here, and I'll see you in a minute. So I managed to kill his general right there finally after putting a lot of my elite tier units, the Karn Race, the Blood Dragons, and the Grail Knights into the fight right there. And then the only unit left on the field for him is a single Minotaur who's already taken a ton of HP damage. And my Blood Dragons are going to go in there with their very high melee stats and finish off the battle. So managed to surround my Beastmen opponent. That's one of the most important tactics for a Vampire Counts player, is just use those numbers to your advantage. Lots of lower tier and mid tier units with the undead Chaos Warriors and the skeletons and the zombies, and then only a few really elite tier units like the Vampire Counts, the Blood Dragon Knights, the Holy Grail Knights, the Vampire Black Knights, those kind of units that finish off the important targets for you. So managed to get a decent amount of kills on my main line. Blood Dragons did pretty well. My Black Grail Knights did amazingly well for me. And basically just with the roster, more diverse roster that I had, was able to completely surround and take the field from my opponent. So hope you guys enjoyed looking at the Vampire Counts. Again, they're the faction I'm most excited to play as when Total War Warhammer drops. And there will be more Warhammer content coming soon. Hope you guys are enjoying the mod and the content. Talk to you all later. Any Pride signing out. Peace.